another episode of the UX Research Rundown. My name is Henrik Mattsson. I'm the CEO of Lookback and the host of this show. This is episode 4 in the 4th season. So with me today, I have another guest. This is a great tradition that we haven't broken so far. Always amazing guests, no pressure. With me today, though, I have Reggie Murphy, who is the Senior Director and Head of UX Research at Zendesk. Always a bit scared for me as a Swede. I can't say said, so I Zendesk. But I think I got that right. Everyone knows Zendesk. Which company I'm talking about. There, exactly. Zendesk. There you go. Zendesk. There you go. Perfect. So welcome to the show. Very happy to have you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So as per ancient tradition, we're going to start with your origin story, how you got into UX research and all that stuff. And then we're going to, at some smooth point, a transition into today's topic, which is related to the UX. Is it called Research Week? Alec and Maggie has to forgive me. I think it's called Research Week, right. Which is coming up soon.
Learners Research Week.
Learners Research Week, exactly. And this whole season is dedicated to talking to people who will actually be giving a talk or helping organizing that amazing event. So, right. But before we jump into that, what is your super villain? Are you a hero, villain? What's your origin story? Feel free to identify.
Maybe a little bit of both, but boy, when you have been in this business for as long as I have, man, this my origin story may take the whole time, but I'll try to keep it brief.
That could be a great episode. So feel unrestrained.
Well, I have a very interesting story, and it's maybe not unlike many people who traverse this UX research career. So I started my career in UX research when UX was not even a thing. It wasn't called UX research. So, when I was in college, I thought that I would be a news reporter. That's what I aspired to have. That's what I aspired to be, or that's what I thought I would want to be when I was in college. So I majored in history because someone that was a mentor of mine said, hey, if you want to be in the communications field and be a news reporter, you have to understand history, because in history you take economics and politics and all of the humanities. I said, okay, great idea. So my Bachelor of Science degree is in history. But then once I was about to graduate, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I started looking at some of the salaries for news reporters here in the United States. And I said, I don't know if I want to be a field reporter, because I don't know if I could really make a living doing that. So I ended up in grad school for the first time. And I entered the master's program in communications. And this degree just allowed me to learn a little bit more about the field of communications, media in general, specifically radio. So I was doing some internships and such. And I started thinking maybe news, being a news reporter isn't something I really want to do. I enjoyed it. I worked at the campus radio station, and some of my part-time jobs was being on the radio. I worked at a classic rock and roll radio station, believe it or not.
Oh, you have a good voice too. I can hear it now. I'm closing my eyes here and I'm hearing
that. I appreciate that. I mean, I was really working on the craft for a long period of time. Because someone said, hey, Reg, you got a good voice. Maybe you should do this. But while I was working at this radio station, and my job as an intern at that time was poring over the data that the sales team used to sell radio advertising. So there was a research report years ago called Media Audit. I think it's still around, but Media Audit was basically a big survey of a particular marketplace, a particular market. And the market I was in, we could see how many people were listening to all the radio stations and the different products that they purchased. So for example, you could pull up data that says, well, in the next 12 months, 100,000 people plan to buy furniture. And then the salesperson would go to the furniture store and say, hey, out of those 100,000 people that plan to buy furniture, 75,000 listen to our radio station, so buy us. So that was really the start of, I was like, this is really interesting stuff. And so I started geeking out on data. And so that internship led me to actually a job in sales, which I hated. was the worst. It was, I would say, one of the worst jobs I had. I hated. I just never liked it. The thing that I really liked.
No, it's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone. But what I really liked is going out and showing these wonderful charts about the data, about the research.
I can see where this is going. Yeah.
So I enjoy telling stories about the research, but hey, whether or not they purchased advertising or not, no big deal. You can't survive as a radio salesperson without actually making a sale. So I didn't really last too long in that business. But a couple of years into being a salesperson, that's when the internet, this shows how long I've been in this business. The internet was becoming a thing. And at that time, I decided to go back to graduate school because I thought that was the best way for me to learn more about it. And because I was intrigued and fascinated by what the internet what it was and what it could be. And so after graduate school, that's when the tipping point happened for me as far as wanting to be a researcher. Because doctorate degrees are just research degrees. You learn research methods, you learn how to conduct focus groups, you learn how to do quant research and surveys and all that stuff. And so I learned all that in grad school, and I landed at a media research and consulting company right after grad school. And that was probably one of the best places for me to land. That's when the internet was hot and everybody was trying to build a website. And so our company did a lot of research on just the landscape of the internet and adoption and that sort of stuff. So I was doing a lot of that, as well as, in addition to conducting usability tests to help companies develop these websites that they were that they were building at the time. Well, internet crashed, all that happened, and I landed at a company for a number of years that was a media company that owned USA Today. And for that period of time, I would say that was like the first half of my career I spent being a market researcher. Again, this was before UX was called UX. We worked on usatoday.com. I worked on helping salespeople sell. I mean, I was still doing a little bit of that. But then we had the market crash in 08, 09, and then the iPhone came out. So a lot of people may remember that. And then this is when our company was trying to put USA Today, build the USA Today app. And so I started working with designers and engineers and product managers. And we built the USA Today app on the iPhone and the iPad. Whew. And then after that, I was.
And then you get some data.
I was up. I was like, okay, this is my direction. So anyway, let me go a little faster here. So I ended up after that company at a enterprise design and research consultancy. And this was what I would say really one of the better jobs that I've had, because we worked with a variety of different customers as a consultancy. You do that. And I became fascinated with the world of enterprise and SaaS products, SAP, big ERP systems, big electronic health record systems like Epic and Cerner. And so a lot of companies would hire us to come in and help redesign or reskin some interfaces. But what was interesting about enterprise research and design was that when you are working internally for a company and they purchase a big system for you to use, you can't delete it like you can consumer products on your phone. And so to me, the importance of getting design right was, I think, more important for enterprise products, because at work, you are working on a system for 8 hours a day, maybe even more throughout the week. So you're spending half of your life, even more, with these various tools. And sometimes companies don't really take the time to try to understand how employees work. And that's at that job, I really felt sort of a mission to work on products that we use internally for work. So after that company, I landed at Facebook, and that, again, another shift, because that was during the time when Facebook was growing massively. And I got to do a lot of really interesting things there and worked on a lot of projects. After that, Vanguard, the financial services company that a lot of people know about, I built a team there. And so, all along this trajectory, I've been managing teams. So even in the early days, I was sort of a player coach. And so I always sort of managed 3 or 4 people. But at Facebook, I started managing more, 15, 17 or so. Then at Vanguard, the same. And then Twitter happened. And then the pandemic, Twitter. We could talk about Twitter another time.
This is great because you started out in history, and now
Yes.
like we're getting like this reminds me of the history. I've been on the same timeline.
Okay,
as
so
you,
you've been on
this is great.
So you
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
So
Perfect.
so my time at Twitter was awesome. I enjoyed it until it wasn't, and we can go down that rabbit hole another time. But I left Twitter before the chaos really hit and landed at Zendesk, which is where I am now. And I've been senior director, head of research since I joined the company. And it's been an amazing ride for the last 3 years here at Zendesk.
Right. Awesome. Oh, so much to
go ahead
to dig into. No, but it's great. I mean, it's yeah. I think it's such an interesting point you make about the, especially when you have like call it B2B, call it enterprise software. Like it is the office, and especially now when we're remote. You're sitting in these tools all the time, and that's something that. I remember my design team at Lookback has always been like very much like it has to be beautiful. It has to be not just work. It has to be beautiful. And I'll admit it. I'm not a very kind of like when we're doing like renovations at home. I'm doing the stuff that won't be seen. You know what I mean? Like
right.
the infrastructure, right? So I'm not a guy that I can appreciate beauty, but I'm not one who kind of feels confident in kind of making it happen, right? So. But I've always been like, okay, sure, that's nice. Why not? Why not have it beautiful? But I've come to understand over the years that like it can actually make or break a product because it's such a big part of the experience. Like, how do I actually feel every single day when I have to sit in this tool for hours and hours and hours and hours? And I think that's something that's sometimes a bit lost in this. So it's a great reminder.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of really critical SaaS companies out there who develop products that a lot of people use. I mean, internally, Workday, Salesforce. I mean, some of our competitors to Zendesk. And it's really important to understand that in all of this, and I look back at my career, that there's always a human being who is putting their fingers on a keyboard. And you mentioned the word, I think you said delightful or beautiful. You said beautifully simple. Beautiful, that's part of one of our core values at Zendesk is to be beautifully simple. And it's one thing to have a functional product. Products have to be usable, and it has to help you accomplish a task. But boy, wouldn't it be great to have an enterprise product where, as you said, you feel good about coming to work every day and engaging with it because it's so easy, it's so simple, and it delights you. It has all these little features and little interesting things that help engage you throughout your work journey every day. And if you sit, especially in a customer support sector as Zendesk is in, we spend a lot of time speaking with customer service agents, people who are on the phone or on chat messaging systems, talking with customers who may or may not be in a good mood.
Yeah.
So if the person that you're speaking with, we call them the end user, is in a really upset mood because something happened to their product and they're firing away, and you are working with a really crappy interface, and it's taking you a long time to find things. Plus, you have to log into and access other systems. Maybe it's a catalog system where you have to look up a certain SKU for a product, etc. And you are agent. You're having to navigate all of that. You're getting it from the customer. Imagine how much stress. I mean, we've done a lot of research at Zendesk about how the stress and pressure of making sure the time that you're spending online with someone to resolve their ticket is low, and you have that pressure. It's a lot of stress. So I go back to the notion of there's always a human behind these keyboards, no matter what. If you're in an enterprise space or if you're in a consumer product space, B2C space, and it's very important for researchers to really understand that and to really. And I take pride in trying to make sure that any research team that I'm leading, or even if it's research that I'm doing, that I'm really understanding that and trying to really get to the bottom of what that need and desire is for the customer or consumer or whoever is using your system that you're working on.
Right. Oh, I love it. It makes me think. I saw the think it was today, The Onion had something about, one of those fake headlines where it was, I think it was, "My work doesn't define me," says man who will spend 90,000 life hours, in front of his computer. Something like that. And, it's like whether regardless of how we think about work, for most of us, unless, we pick the right parents or something, we have to do it. And it's like, if you're going to be in that environment, I think it's something that's forgotten, or down prioritized rather in a lot of teams that build this software, right? Because so many things to do, and it's like, I can make it pretty later or something like that. Like, what do you? It sounds like it's something you've been thinking a lot about. Like, as a researcher, like, are there specific methods for keeping this top of mind, or like how do you address that with all the other stuff that like the team needs to build, so to speak?
Wow, I remember going through some training from some innovation companies like out of IDEO, and there's some other innovation strategy companies out there. And I can't remember who is this, where I learned this from, but throughout the journey of trying to, let's say you're in discovery phase of a research project, there's this moment when you're trying to build something that you capture something that is that truly like engages the customer or the person that's using your product. And oftentimes, many products just don't find what that is that completely opens up someone's eyes and delights them. It could be like a tone. It could be something really cute on the screen. I'm trying to find an example, but I think we all know those examples of different apps that go, wow, that's clever. That's interesting. That moment of man, that was a nice touch. I like that. And what that does is it not only sort of gives your product a brand, sort of, it's all becomes part of the brand of using a thing, but it just helps build loyalty. And so I don't know, as a researcher, it's not like you design research to try to find those things, but it can come up organically if you are doing your job at really exploring the needs. And once you're, it's all about your craft at really getting underneath the underneath, because customers will only give you a surface level,
right?
And then it takes a really good researcher to continue to drill down to really get at the heart of what the problem is that they're trying to solve. And let me tell you, if you are able to solve someone's problem, I maybe I'm contradicting myself. It doesn't have to be all that beautiful. In some cases, as long as you're having
but beauty can come in many forms.
Exactly.
Perhaps that's controversial, but I do think that's true.
Yeah. But as long as you're solving the problem or helping them complete a task so that they're successful and they feel good about it and they can get it done in 2 or 3 minutes time. I mean, you think about all the products and places where you buy things online. I mean, Amazon is like, made this, pretty easy to buy. It's a one-click buy. And I look at my Amazon Prime credit card and go, whoa, did I spend that much last month? Because it's so easy, right? But you think of just other products that are out there, and you just want to try your best to again make them simple to use. But at the end of it all is, did your customer achieve their goal? Did they complete the task? Did they solve the problem that they were trying to before they logged into your system? And if you're completing that, then you're going to get that delight from the customer, because they're going to come back and use it because they know, oh, that took me 2 seconds to do that thing, so I'm going to go back there. And at some point, you'll find that little delightful moment, and you can capture it and try to continue to build on it for the future.
Yeah, interesting. And I think I'm going to throw a theory out there. And
all right, let's hear it.
That. I was down in San Francisco last week, and I was talking to, I didn't have a chance to actually go to the conference, but the dovetail through a conference there called the Insights. And a lot of people there. I met a lot of, colleagues in the space and everything. It's not like we're, coordinating every tool out there, but, we talk. And I was listening like, hey, what's like, how are you thinking now about the changing role of research and all that stuff with AI and all those things? And I think kind of almost a consensus there. So it means either we're all crazy or we're onto something. Was kind of like, Well, with AI, as it gets like much, it's just another one, a pretty significant one, but it's just another one of those technologies that makes it easier for more people to build product quicker. Like the all the kind of all the aspects of product that you could spend a lot of time on back in the days that are now just like off the shelf things or that you just do. So what then remains when more and more people can just build all of this stuff? What's the differentiator? And we all agree that it's kind of, well, it's that kind of what you're talking about. It's that extra little like, well, there are 50 tools that can do this with AI, but like, how does this one make me feel?
Oh,
That kind of,
100%. Oh, I agree with you. I mean, it's,
yeah.
I think of AI now the way the internet came to life, back in the early 2000s. That you had this crazy hype cycle, and then you had all of the privacy.
Right.
Oh, you had those concerns, which are legit concerns.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I think now as it's maturing like at a super fast rate, so many opportunities to use it, and I think you're right. It's going to. I think people now are using it for a lot of functional tasks. How's it going to make me faster, more productive, analyzing data or content, building content. I mean, there are some really fancy tools out there now that are building websites and all of these things. At some point, it's going to reach a moment where I think right now using it in tandem with your workflow is, I mean, that's sort of where I am in my journey with it. I'm sort of using it as a partner. It's like, oh, can you help me with this? But for it to come and completely take over, I don't know. For some, maybe it has happened already, but for me and how I just sort of in my personal life, I'm sort of using it as a co-pilot.
No,
a lot of products are called co-pilot now, so I'm using it as that. But I think when it comes down to research, and I think there are ways that teams are using it to find information, to I would say find information, to conduct research more efficiently. And there's some products out there that's helping. That people are building where you can create, AI moderators and have them conduct research for you. So we've experimented with them, and I've sort of experimented with them, and we're going to have to continue to do it. I don't know if I have a success or failure rate. I don't know if I can, at the moment. I've seen some, I've used some, but I haven't. I can't say that we're using it 100% throughout our organization at Zendesk. But I know that those tools out there are helping teams innovate. But it's still an open question for me. So I'm saying I'll say it's still an open question for me for how.
So you're saying it depends, is what you're saying as a researcher.
It really does, though, in terms of, well, how is it? Because people are still just trying to navigate, trying to figure out how they're going to use it to help them, number one, be more productive, be more successful, and have more impact. And at the end of the day, that's really the impact. Is utilizing or leveraging an AI tool for research helping you inform a product strategy and build and ship something that's awesome for your customers and end users? Like that. That's really it. Is it? Can you draw a line straight there? And if you can't right now, that's okay, because it's still in its infancy, I think, even though it's growing so fast, and you have to use it. You have to embrace it. I hear a lot of people talking about, it's taking our jobs and all this. No, AI is not going to take your job. The people who learn how to use it are the ones who are going to take your job.
Yeah, I'm sure it can feel like it can feel like that's what's happening, but we've been experimenting a lot with it in the Lookback tool, and there's so many things that you can do. So I have to think about like, well, where do we put our resources? Where can we make a difference? Where's our unique contribution here? And we've been going more into kind of like the workflow. I've been doing a lot with like stakeholder relationships and stuff like that, managing that, like making sure that all of these like things that you find that aren't perhaps part of the exact like predicted study, but that you kind of stumble across, that those things can actually get into the whole kind of transparency and everything. So that's been super interesting. But one thing I've observed is that it's not like there is this like limited amount of research that is like enough research that companies can do, and then we're just like under that. We're not even close. Like the most of the constraints now that are limiting the amount of research that is being done, it's just like we don't have enough, like it takes too long to recruit, or it's like it takes too long to conduct, or takes too long to analyze, or something like that. It's not because, oh no, we've done all the research that we want to do. Like on the contrary, like people, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself, it's like most people who are successful in this space, they will go from like trying to get a seat at the table to drowning in demand for research, and it's like, we're not even close. So if AI can help us like extend ourselves, like perhaps you're doing a few like human moderated interviews, and then you're doing a few like AI moderated interviews, that's how I see it. It's like, I understand we live in an economic climate now where there's been a lot of cuts and everything, and the suffering has been real in our industry. But so perhaps it's easy to feel like, oh, you know what, like there's no demand for this. But I think like having all of these humans who can actually be 10x or whatever with these co-pilots, I think that's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be because then we can finally get to it. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Can AI help a team or help a researcher on a project surface an insight they would not otherwise be able to surface? Like that's the question that I'm asking myself. And whether or not we invest in a research tool to do some moderation, some AI moderating, I don't know if that's in the cards for us right now, but I think that's what I will be interested in trying to discover at some point, if it does happen for us, is can that tool help us really dig in an area where we don't even know that it's an area yet. So it's probably asking a lot but it's growing so much now.
Well, you should ask a lot. I mean, no, you should. I mean, I think about this as a tool builder all the time, right? I mean, this is like how you build a tool like ours, is that you listen to people who have these problems, and they should ask a lot, and then you try to meet those things. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't. But I'll tell you one interesting thing that came out of the research that we've done so far. Based on this, like, can it find something? Well, it depends on what you mean by that. Like, can it, if you would look at an hour video, let's say, right, with a user, and the AI would look at that video, can it find something that you wouldn't be able to find? I would say the answer currently is no, right? Because if you spend it, there isn't that much to uncover. I love your feeling about like, I love your feeling of your thing about like getting underneath the underneath, right? But that doesn't happen in the review. That happens like during the moderation. So could it like dig into something? Probably not. But at scale, when you're running a lot of different interviews, like with team members of different experience levels and stuff like that, can it help you spend more time where you are, can it empower you to be more of a force in your research practice than what you can currently be just by managing people, teaching people, kind of to overseeing things? Absolutely. And that's where we're seeing a lot of encouraging things where, actually just like keeping track of everything that stakeholders are interested in so that you can bring timely, relevant insights to them, even when those insights are outside of the main scope of your research. Like that's something, we can help you surface today. And that really empowers you to have more impact with the research that you are doing. So yes and no is the answer to your question as far as we can see in the research so far. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Super interesting. Anyway, you can nerd out on that. I love how this origin story just like went into all of this, and I absolutely love it. But it is my podcast, and we can talk about whatever we want. But so there's no script here. But I would like to. I'm actually curious, and I'm sure listeners are very curious too, to hear a little bit more about what you're talking about at Research Week. So perhaps let's pivot to that and tell us a little bit about your thinking there.
Well, I was talking with Alec on topics, and the title of my talk is Pivot or Perish. It's a very ominous title, engaging title. And the general theme is comes from basically what happened to me when I joined Zendesk 3 years ago. Imagine joining a company that's public, and you're coming in to lead a UX research team, and a few weeks after you join, you learn that the company is now going to be acquired and go private. Now, some people are like, oh, that's not a big deal. And oftentimes it depends. Like, it depends on sort of what the PE firm wants to do with the company.
Right.
But that's what happened to me when I first joined Zendesk. And so I'm going to talk about what that journey was like to help the team navigate a world where, you're asked to do the same or more with a little bit less. You have obviously there's been economic pressures across all companies over the past few years, especially at that time in 2022. And so I want to talk about what that meant for us and how we had to, number one, sort of face the idea that, okay, maybe we won't get new headcount. Maybe our budget is going to be flat year to year as we start thinking about our plans for the future. And so when a company shifts like that, how does it impact a UX research team, and how does a UX research leader help his team, her team, navigate it? And so that's really the theme that I'm going to wrestle with. And at the end, hopefully, everyone can walk away with 2 or 3 things that UX research teams need to do when their company sort of is facing like a shift such as that, going from public to private. But I think it goes beyond that. It's how can you take because every company now, no matter public or private, is sort of going through sort of this global economic pressures. So when you're in that state of trying to navigate that as a team, where okay, maybe you are losing headcount because through attrition, or maybe it's a unfortunate workforce reduction or something that's happened, and all of the teams around you, all of your cross-functional partners are having the same pain, and they're coming to you with the same amount of requests or the same needs. How do you then help them? How do you partner with them? And what kinds of tactics or strategies do you deploy? And so I'm going to talk about some of that and hopefully give the audience some specific ideas they can take away and learn from.
Nice. Oh, I'm definitely going to check out that talk. Anything you want to, I don't want to put my guests on the spot. Well, it's always like you're talking about the future speech that isn't probably ready, but yes. Like, are there some? Can you give away some of the conclusions?
Well, let me say
without saying too much.
Well, let me say this. I can tell you what not to do. Like, I think that when you're at a company where especially research teams now are a little smaller. And if I know a lot of UX researchers, and we are trying to have impact. We're trying to really help inform product strategy. The solution to still having the same, if not more, impact in a time of constraints is not volume. It's not, well, we're going to just try to do more research so that we can be seen, so that we can make sure we're showing our value. I see a lot of that happening. It's like, that means we got to do more research. That's not the solution. The solution, I'll tease it a little bit, is you got to be more strategic. And I think oftentimes some research teams just, they haven't figured out that path to developing more of a strategic positioning inside the company. Maybe they just, from a historical perspective, they've been mostly doing tactical research for the most part, very little generative research. And so when you think about if that is the way your team is oriented, no matter if you're seeing a big shift or change in the company, it's my position that teams need to move from being mostly tactical to being majority strategic. If not most, at least 60, 70% of your work must be strategic. And to me, that's the most valuable research. That's where you can extract the most value from your team, and where if you talk about seats at the table and all of that,
Yeah.
When researchers are sitting in the rooms with all of their cross-functional leaders at the VP, director, VP, and up level, and sharing insights, not just on the findings of the work, but actual points of view about what should and what the company should build or should not build, that's the moment. That's when you know that you're having impact, and your UX research team is having a lot of value at your company when you can get to that point.
Right. And it's interesting your point about volume too, because the volume, I might be wrong about this. The UX research community must forgive me if I, after over a decade, still gets this wrong. But I do think that's the volume is going to be easy. It's going to, if you do more volume, it's going to happen in the tactical stuff. It's really hard to do all of the kind of very strategic stuff at a high volume thing, because it's more like high quality rather than quantity.
Right. But I would say this: if you are like, oh yeah, we need to do more, like more usability. I think oftentimes it isn't all bad. It's what are you doing with that information? Is it iterative? Is it really informing what the problem is that the researcher is trying to solve to begin with? And if that's the case, then great. Yeah, do some iterative usability tests to try to get to the interface that works the most. I mean, the best. And if that's the case, great. Do as much as you need to. But for the most part, if your team is primarily doing tactical research, and if the only time that a research project is even conceived is when someone is asking for it, that's the problem. Is that if your cross-functional stakeholders, a PM, is coming to you saying, hey, we want this done, that you're kind of behind already. What should be happening is your team should be partnering. This is where I've been on a mission to stop our team from saying, oh, we support this group, we support this team. We say, no, we don't support. No, we're not in the, we are in the customer support business, but we do not support these teams. We partner with these teams, and there's a difference. And I try to make this point, even as we sort of casually are talking about our jobs internally, is that we partner with design, engineering, and product marketing, management, operations teams. We partner with them to solve a customer's problem. See, if they see us as a team that's just giving them support, then they're going to only call us when they want support. Oh, we need a research study.
Yeah, exactly.
See, it's a different. I know it's like, okay, these words matter, and these two words really, really matter to me. And I think that if your team is seeing themselves as just, hey, look, we support this team, we support that team, change the word, change it to, no, we partner with that team. It's a different way of thinking. And now they see you as a true partner. They see you as, oh, they're calling you now at the very beginnings of talking about what issue or customer problem they're trying to solve from the very beginning. And then you talk about, oh, seats at the table. Well, okay, now you're in discussions about these things from the very beginning. And so you're not being called, 2 or 3 phases into a product development lifecycle and saying, oh, we need research now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only thing I'm thinking now when you're saying all of this is that now I'm in the bad position of being so, I totally agree with you, right? And it's something I've seen also in doing a lot of research on researcher over all these years, right?
Yeah.
We see all the data and I've talked to them and it's like, well, what separates, like if you have to pick one thing, what separates like a very successful, highly strategic, research team from a less successful, perhaps still high volume research team? Well, I would boil it down to like the stakeholder relationship. It's like, do you bring them in early, proactively? Well, if you do, you're going to have a lot of people reading your report after too. We see the observation data, right? So it's like there's a clear correlation between how early you got the stakeholder into the process, or how early like you were just starting to talk about this thing, how strategic it is, and like the interest in the actual research output that you're doing. And the more you go towards the kind of like, hey, we need this many usability tests. I mean, that's all, as you said, that can also be very high value stuff.
Yes.
But you know, that's really what's going to make you feel like you have a seat at the table, because you have a seat. It happens early, and it happens in those discussions, and
Right.
the research is just something that grows out of
Right.
that,
And
rather than being like, hey, we need this
exactly.
thing.
You're seen as a
Mm.
strategic advisor.
Yeah,
So when I
yeah,
first, and this
yeah.
is another point I'll make in the talk at Research Week, is if you can change the mindset of your team from just being UX researchers. Yes, we're researchers
Mm.
by craft, trade, discipline, all of that. But we're
Yeah.
strategic advisors to our cross-functional stakeholders. So they're relying on us not just to build surveys and to build
Mm.
moderation guides and to conduct interviews. They're relying on us for our insight, our point of view about
Hmm.
all the things that we're talking about here with solving a customer's problem. So
Yeah.
it takes shape in a lot of different forms when you have that trust. When I say it takes shape, your value takes shape
Hmm.
once they begin to trust you for providing them insights, but they trust your opinion about what they should be doing with those insights.
Yeah.
And that to
Yeah.
me um, is where the long-term value of a UX research team is. And I'm not saying that, hey, if you do all of these things, and at the talk, I'm gonna say, hey, you do these 10 things and you've got, job security and all that kind of stuff. Look, there's
Yeah.
no such thing as we see in the world today. But
Yeah.
it will help provide you you will feel good about the work that you're doing, and you'll feel good about the
Yeah.
relationship. I love you talking about saying it's about developing relationships with your stakeholders to the
Yeah.
point where they will not make a decision without you.
Yeah.
See, now when you
Yeah.
reach that
100%.
point as a UX researcher, ooh, talking about delightful, talking about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
thing when they say, oh man, we've got to call so and so before we make this decision.
Mm.
That's where I want my teams to grow to be.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's something that we are still aspiring to be here at Zendesk. But all the teams that I've worked on and teams that have worked for me over the years, I've tried to provide that type of coaching because it's so critical now as we start thinking
Hmm.
about how the industry is changing, how teams are smaller, and you read all these articles about the UX research is going through this big shift and all of that. I think if there's just some core principles that you should follow to try to be able to have a long career in this
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is when we're talking about some of them now, developing relationships with your stakeholders, turning
Mm.
from being just a UX researcher to a strategic advisor, a strategic consultant,
Yeah. Yeah.
shifting that to say, hey, I can talk about more than just the research I'm doing. I can really talk about this, like really learning the product to the point
Hmm.
where I've seen a lot of researchers transition from being a researcher to a product manager because they
Right.
have
Right.
grown into learning so much about how the product works and what customers need in order to be successful with the product that, hey, they literally find a new career path. But
Yeah.
if you're a researcher looking to trying to figure out how do I accelerate my career, get to that next level, that's how
Mm.
you do it. And it's
Yeah.
not easy and it takes time. But as I said, and I will say it again, when your key stakeholders on a project or within your work stream, I should say, if they're not making decisions without you, if they're saying that they can't make decisions without you, then that's when you know that you have proven your value and you're having a lot of impact on a consistent basis with them.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think that's I've had a lot of questions from people in the field when I go to these events and everything about like, hey, like, there's been a lot of cuts and everything. And it feels like, is there even a future? Is there any point in me going into this field and everything? And there's a feeling there that like companies don't appreciate research and something like that, right? But I think what's happening now is that these cuts that we're seeing now, they're not being made because anyone thinks like, oh, finally, I can just get rid of all of this stuff that I don't need. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that people are forced to cut, and then they have to prioritize. And it's not that they don't need I think a lot of people in my position as like CEOs making these decisions ultimately I think they can feel sometimes that, well, I need it eventually, but I can live without it for 6 months. Okay. And that's what happens when you're a service that is added on. Hey, now we need some research. That means, well, you know what? We do need some research, but we're going to do it next quarter, right? But if you're the one, I think you put it so on the spot, like if they feel, hey, I can't move forward with this, like even I can't even begin this project without consulting my research partner, because that's what I'm used to doing. That's what I've learned to trust. And I'm scared doing it without it. You can't push that a quarter. You can't push that even a month. You have to have that person. And then the priority changes. And I think so. Is it going to guarantee your job forever? No, but it's definitely going to up the chances quite a bit that you're not going to be seen as a peripheral service. You're going to be seen as a core, asset.
Oh man, I love what you said there. I go back to back when I was on Twitter. Jared Spool, I think you know Jared.
Right?
Spool.
Yeah. Everyone.
I love him. He tweeted something that said, I'm going to just paraphrase. He says, the opposite of UX research is guessing.
Yeah.
I think I got the quote wrong, but that
something like that.
When you think about it, and if your stakeholders are going, well, I don't want to guess.
Yeah.
Because guessing is, you might as well just go to a casino and roll the dice.
Yeah.
And I know we're joking, but it's very serious when you're talking about launching a product that could mean X amount of millions of dollars to your company's bottom line. Like, now it's no laughing matter. It's like, we don't want to guess. We need some insight. And UX research, we have a team here that can help us provide it. Like when you're in that conversation and they're questioning, they meaning the executives, are questioning, wow, I think we should do this, but hey man, you're guessing. So we don't want to do that.
Don't want to wing it.
You don't want to wing it. Like we're not in the let's wing it days in this global economy. We're not.
Yeah.
We need to rely on facts, and research can help you do that. And so I don't know, I chuckle every time I think about that quote, and I'm just waiting for the meeting to say it. I haven't been able to say it in a meeting internally. It's like, do you all want to guess? Do you all want to?
Yeah.
Fine, don't use us.
Don't use us.
Don't use your
mic drop. Exit.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
No, I would never say that. But it's something that it comes up often when in conversations. I know a lot about product strategy is like, do we move this direction or move that direction? But if you are a true partner with your cross-functional team and stakeholders inside your work stream that you're working on, if you're a true partner and they value the advice and the information that you're providing them, they won't move without you. And that's where you want to be as a researcher in this day and age.
I cannot say it better myself or add anything of value to that perfect summary of it. And if you want to know more about this, you have to go see the speech.
That's right. Come to Research Week, to the UX conference talk. It's my talk is, I think, later in the afternoon, West Coast time. So I know there's folks who will be watching on YouTube. So I know I have the time. I think it's 3 or 3:30 Pacific time, but I have to check on that Thursday, June the 5th. But
I think it's probably pretty good timing because
So you'll be providing the links in this.
I will be providing all the links, so everything should be. You should never trust what I say in this podcast, because I always get things wrong. But the links will be correct.
Yes.
I have some
know
smarter
my talk
people.
Is on Thursday afternoon, so but come to the talk if you're there in person. I'd love to meet you, and definitely watch online if you're not coming in person, because I'm hoping to share some information that folks can walk away with and use.
No, it sounds like it's going to be extremely valuable. So I'll be there for sure. Do you also have, we've reached that point where I have to start rounding things up here. But before I let you go, do you have any, I know you have a website.
Oh, yes.
Things like that, some resources, anything you want to
I'd love to share this. A couple of years, last year, one of my colleagues and I we had been trying to think of ways of helping the UX research community. During the pandemic and afterwards, I was mentoring a lot of people who were either a UX researcher or a junior researcher, or some people who were transitioning from, say, marketing and sales to UX research. There weren't a lot of tools out there to help them grow and develop and train and get training to be a UX researcher. Now they're countless. But our website, UXR.design, is designed for these two personas of folks. So folks early in their career, or people who are transitioning from maybe one career to the next. What we've aggregated on this website are articles written by UX research professionals. So what we've tried to do is sort of not necessarily, we have a few links to some industry articles, from various products, from various companies. But what we've tried to do is curate articles that are written by UX researchers who have made a transition from A to B to UX research, or from B to UX research, who talk about their journey, all the things that they did, all the things that they did wrong, lessons that they've learned. And so we've curated these articles, and we're now going into a version 2 of this website, and hopefully it'll be ready to launch by the time the research week happens. So I'm excited for it.
Perfect.
Because we've gotten a lot of great feedback from folks who may not have had mentoring or knew where to go and find various articles about, okay, well, how do I develop my quant research skills? I'm a little light on quant research skills, or how do I become a better moderator or interviewer? So we've got links to those articles. So UXR.design is the website. And as I said, we'll be sort of relaunching a refreshed version of it with more articles by the first week of June.
Awesome. Great. I'm definitely going to check that out. Cool. Thank you so much for your time. And my camera went all over the place. Yes. There we go. Technology.
Now that I know you play the guitar, we're going to have to talk music when I...
There you go. Yeah, we'll have a jam session
exactly
in San Francisco. Awesome. Right. Look, a great pleasure. I know people are going to love this episode. I could have gone on for hours here, but thank you so much. And the talk isn't over yet. There will be the talk on Research Week, as we've said. So, until then, everyone, thank you all for listening. And as always, happy researching, even if times can be a bit hard now. I think you've had some great advice in this podcast. And, until next time, have a good one. Bye-bye.